Hello friends, so we'll continue with the protection chapter. So here we are going to see implementation of access matrix. So how can the access matrix be implemented effectively? So here we can see, if you have in the previous video we have seen access matrix. So if most of the entries in the access matrix remains empty, so here we will first describe the methods for implementing the access matrix, and later we'll compare those methods. So the first one we'll see is the global table. So we are going to study here the concept global table, access lists, capability lists, and lock key mechanism. So the first one, global table. So this is the simplest implementation of access matrix, which consists of triplets, where we will have domain, object, and write sets with it. So whenever we are invoking any operation on any object by any domain, then this global table will be searched for these triplets. Now what are these triples we are having here? We are having domain, we will be having object, and we will be having an operation what we are going to perform. Now write sets in the sense what all operations we are able to perform on a particular object, that will be written on that. So we are going to search this global table, and if an appropriate entry is found in that global table, then only we are allowed to continue with that operation on any particular object. If that particular entry is not available in the table, then exception is going to be raised or any error condition is raised. So here next we will see access control list. So as this global table has many drawbacks, why? Because this table is very large, as we are going to keep many entries of ordered triples like domain, object, and what write set we are going to have on that object. So it is going to be very large here, and you cannot keep that in the memory. So additional input output will be needed here. So many other techniques like virtual memory techniques can also be used for managing this table. So that's why this is very difficult to maintain here. So next we will see access lists, or we can call them as access control list. So here in access control list, so each column in the access matrix can be implemented as an access list. So we are having various columns in the access matrix, as you might remember. So those columns are going to represent an object. So those column can be here implemented as an access list for one particular object. So the resulting list for each object consists of ordered pairs. So those pairs are going to consist of domain and write set, like what writes we are going to have on a particular object. It may be read write, or you may have a rights to write into that file, or you may have rights to execute a particular object. So here these define all the domains with a non-empty set of access rights for a particular object. So this approach can be used here, easily used, or we may have we may use it as a default set of access rights. So whenever any operation is going to be performed on any object which is attempted by any domain, then we are going to search this access list. So access list for each object will be having. So we are going to search the access list for for an entry which consists of domain and write set as a pair, where you need to search whether that particular operation what you are going to perform on an object is present in that entry or no. If that entry is already there in that table, then you can perform a particular operation what you wanted to. Otherwise, you are not allowed to perform the operation. So you can see in the slide, we are having for domain 1 an access right given as read and write. Now for example, we will consider we are having one particular file here which is named as file 123. So on file 123, domain 1 can perform read and write operation. So you are going to search for access list here, where for that particular file 123, for domain 1 we are having read write operation or no. If you are having these rights, then only you can perform read write operation. Now for example, in domain 2 we have only read as well as with domain 3 also. So now if you are trying to perform write operation, now as you can see here, domain 2 and 3 are having only read writes on object file 123. So you are now trying to write something into that file. So what happens here, the list will be checked first. Now in that list we don't have write operation listed. So you are not allowed to perform this operation, and obviously an exception condition occurs here where you are not supposed to write anything into that particular file. So this is about access control list. Then next we are having is capability lists for domains. Now what is this capability list, or it can be also known as a key. We'll see what is that key later. So this capability list for a domain is a list of objects together with the operations allowed on those objects. Now you are having various lists of operations that can be allowed, right? Now for example, an object is often represented by its name or address. So that name or address here is known as the capability. Now for example, an object can be named as any file name. For example, I told now file 123, that can be the name of the file, and that particular file will be stored in some memory location, so that holds some address. So here, so the object can be represented by any name or address which is called as capability here. So now for example, to execute any operation on any object, the process executes this operation. Now for example, we are going to have write operation on file 123. Then the process executes this write operation specifying the capability for particular object as a parameter. Now for example here, now what you are going to do, we are going to perform now for example write operation on any object. Then here we are going to specify the capability here. Capability parameter in the sense you are going to use file name as the parameter here. On that particular file name you want to perform write operation. So this is nothing but here capability list. So here you can see in the slide we are having various examples given here. On object 1 we are having access rights for read. On object 4 we are having read, write, execute. And on object 5 we have read, write, delete and copy operations. Now what is key here? We need to see what is key. So here that mechanism can be called as a lock key mechanism. So this lock key scheme is compromise between access control list and capability lists. So here each object has a list of unique bit patterns which are called as locks. So here similarly each domain has a list of unique bit patterns which are called as keys. Now here each object is having a lock and each domain is having a key. Now what are lock and what are key? These are represented by some bit patterns. Okay, you can just consider the cryptography subject where we are going to have some encryption and decryption. Right. So here unique bit patterns, in the sense some bits you can consider here like 1 0 0 zeros and ones. So here a process which is executing in domain can access any object only if that domain has a key. Now here if you want to access object file 123, then that file 123 will be locked. So you have to have that key to open that lock, then only you are supposed to use that particular file. otherwise you are not supposed to use it. So as with capability lists, so the list of keys for a domain also must be managed here by the operating system on behalf of domain. So users are not allowed to modify the list of keys or locks directly here. It has to be done through the intervention of an operating system. Now when we want to compare these mechanisms, now we saw global time, access control list, capability list and a lock key mechanism. Now if you want to compare this, now as we already mentioned, using global table will be very simple, but it is very large to manage as it requires more memory. And access list corresponds directly to the needs of user. So whenever a user creates an object, he can specify which domain we can access the object, as well as what operations are allowed. And every access to the object here must be checked, where we require searching of the access list. So if you have a larger system, then you will have very long access lists here. So this search becomes time consuming. Now if you go to capability lists, then these do not correspond directly to the needs of users, but they are useful, however, for localizing the information for a given process. Now the process attempting access must present a capability for that access. Then the protection system needs only to verify that the capability is valid or not. Now whether whatever file name you have provided as the parameter, that is valid or not, that is the one mechanism what we need to verify here. And next, the last one, lock key mechanism, which is a compromise between access list and the capability list. So here this mechanism can be effective also, and it can be also flexible depending on the length of the keys. Now whatever key you are going to use here, the length of the key is dependent here. Now these keys can be passed freely from domain to domain. So here we need to be careful, because it's all about managing these keys. So here many systems use a combination of access lists and capabilities. Then next we will see is access control. Now how these access controls can be used on files within any file system. So here each file and directory are assigned with some owner, group or users, as we already have studied with the previous module. And for each of these entities, access control information will be assigned. Now we will consider an example of Solaris 10 system, where we are having some advancement in protection, which is available in Sun Microsystems operating system. So here what is the advancement we are adding here is, here we are adding the principle of privilege given via role based access control. Now here we are going to give some privileges depending on the role of the user. So here the privilege is nothing but what right you are going to give to the system call. Now the rights may be anything like read, write or execute. So these privileges are assigned to the processes, limiting them exactly the access they need to perform their work. Now these privileges and programs can also be assigned to some roles. So here users are assigned some roles, or they take some roles based on the system requirement. Now here in this way, user can take any role which have some privileges, and according to those privileges he can use any of the resources here. So here this decreases the security risk, because which is associated with super users and set UID programs, which we have studied in previous concept while studying with domain implementation with Unix. So and it is also similar to access matrix, what we have studied in the previous video. So the next topic we are going to see here is revocation of access rights. So what is this revocation of access rights? So we may sometimes require to remove the access rights of objects shared by different users. Now at one moment of time I have given access rights for one process as read. So the next moment of time I want to change those access rights, or I want to remove those access rights from that particular process here. Okay, so how we are going to revoke the access rights given to the processes here, or given to the various users. So we may have various questions arising before revocation or before removing these access rights. Now what are those questions arising here is immediate versus delayed, the first one. Now does the revocation occur immediately or it is delayed? If the revocation is delayed, so can we find out when it will take place? Are we going to remove the access rights immediately when you create it, or you are going to delay? Or if you are going to delay, at what point of time it is going to take place? This is one question. And next, whether it is selective or general. Now whenever an access right to an object is revoked, does it affect all the users who have an access right to that object, or we can specify a selected group of users whose access rights should be removed? So you are just selecting few group and removing, or generally you are going to affect all the users in the system? This is the next question. And next is partial versus total. So partial versus total is nothing but here whether the rights associated with object, subset of rights associated with an object are revoked, or we are going to revoke all the access rights associated for any object. Now for example, for object 1, if we have read, write, execute access rights, are you going to remove only read, write operation, or as a whole you are going to remove all the rights whatever you have given to that? And next is temporary versus permanent. So here are you going to delete or remove all the rights permanently, or you are just removing those temporarily where you can later again obtain those rights and you can access the files or any objects here? So these are the common questions what we are going to have while revoking any access right. So here if you consider with an access list scheme, revocation will be easy. So deleting the access rights from access list is simple and it is immediate. So immediately you can remove the access rights. Now if you are going to consider the capability list, so this scheme require to locate the capability in the system before any capability can be removed. So you have to first locate where the capability is and then you can think of revoking it. So here also this scheme has various revocation methods, or revocation of capabilities can have various aspects here. We can see one by one. So the first one is reacquisition. So here periodically capabilities can be deleted from each domain. Now if process wants to use any capability, it may find that capability whether it has been deleted or no. Then the process can try to reacquire. Now for example, if you have deleted any capability, now periodically you are deleting these capability. If you want to access it, you are going to search for it. If it is deleted, you can reacquire that capability. You can reacquire in the sense you can restore it and you can use it. That is reacquisition. And the next one is back pointers. So a list of pointers is maintained with each object which is pointing to all the capabilities here associated with that object. So when revocation is required here, we can follow these pointers, changing the capabilities as and when necessary. Next is indirection. So indirection, here these capabilities are pointing indirectly to the objects. That means they are not pointing directly here, they are pointing indirectly to the object. That means here each capability points to a unique entry in the global table, which in turn will be pointing to any other object here. So indirectly through the global table you will be pointing to the object. So here the revocation implementation is done by searching the global table for the desired entry and then deleting it. So whenever an access is attempted, so if the capability is found in that table, then that will be illegal entry in the table. Why? Because we have already wanted to remove it. Then table entries can be reused here for any other capabilities without any difficulty, as we have deleted the entry made into the table here. So this is about indirection. And lastly we will see what is keys. Now here again the key, as we know, it is a unique bit pattern that can be associated with any capability. So this key is defined when the capability is created, and it cannot be modified or nor inspected by any process that owns the capability. So here we will be having one master key which is associated with each object. So it can be defined or replaced with the set key operation. Whenever a capability is created, the current value of the master key is associated with capability. So when the capability is modified or exercised, this key is compared with the master key. Now if these key matches, then the operation will be allowed to continue, otherwise exception condition will be raised. So revocation replaces this master key with a new value via the set key operation. So whatever operations we have done previously, they are all invalidated here. So these are nothing but how we are going to remove the access rights, what are the general questions we are going to get there, and what aspects are included. So this chapter is all about protection. So the next chapter, we have one more chapter in the module 5. We will be seeing that in the next video. So I hope you all have understood the concept. Thank you.